Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have Mr. Joe Sheppard, a 1979 state championship winner, a former present board member of the Jonesboro High School District here. Also, he's the Arkansas State Board of Education District 3 representative for the Jonesboro District. Among those accolades, he also is a businessman in our community and also is known as a DJ Joe. And so today we want to thank you, Joe, and welcome you here to Elite Youth Sports 42 Media. And man, we're excited about, just what you're going to share today, actually with this whole community, and probably teach us over again in our own community. Tell us, man, what lessons you learned and what was your inspiration growing up, and how was the community when you were growing up here in Jonesboro, Arkansas?
Well, the community was the inspiration. You had to understand back, early 60s, growing up on the Washington Street. I was 2 blocks from St. Bernard and 1 block from the Jonesboro Sun and, 4 blocks from downtown. And everything in Jonesboro, including the theater, stores, railroad tracks, all were here. So, growing up in Jonesboro, man, we thought we was the center of attraction, being on Washington Street, even though it was gravel.
Wait a minute, it was gravel?
It was gravel then, yeah.
Washington Street?
Well, Washington Street probably didn't become paved until mid-60s. And then, don't even talk about the double wide, and that was way in the 70s. But we were gravel, right, Washington Street.
Yeah, and it's often said that a neighborhood brings a higher standard to each individual. How was that neighborhood, living in that area, really important to you? And actually, did it bring you to a higher, or did it keep you to a higher standard? Sometimes you have grandmas and grandpas watching out for each other, and not only their kids, but other folks' kids back then. How was it important to you, and was your neighborhood important?
Well, my neighborhood was very important. Growing up, especially being on Washington Street, everybody knew everybody. And, there wasn't many places back when I was growing up that African American, anybody could work. My dad was at Crane Company about the time they opened, and he was there when they closed. And the rule of thumb was that most of the neighbors that worked there, everybody transpired by helping one another, and growing up in that fashion, I learned how easily, most of our neighbors were cousins.
Right.
They weren't considered. You didn't call anybody by their first name. It was always Mr. But they was normally, we labeled them as cousins because we did everything together. And growing up in the neighborhood, our neighborhood was so unique because I was on the street of Washington where Mr. Bill Evans, who started the center, he was the first director of the center, as we called it, but it was the old, actually, Booker T. Washington High School, the first one.
So is it the place where everybody came?
It was the place.
Or is it where other places?
No, there was no other places we could go. But you have to understand, back in those days, Washington Street was the entertainment district for the African Americans.
Okay.
There was nothing on the north side. It was the east side, and they were on the block where you see the senior citizen building now.
Yeah.
They're in Baker Street where the going places, that was the weekend joints, the gambling houses, whatever you wanted to do was there.
Wow.
And they were all business owners. We had a store on the corner, which was a business store, and then we had a restaurant owned by the late Miss Nina.
Wow.
Yeah, so we had everything in our neighborhood that you could act for, and north side, east side, it didn't make any difference. You still had to come to the east side to be entertained.
Wait a minute, because when you talk about north side, east side,
right,
that was a rivalry in a sense. Well, it was made to be a rivalry. Explain to us what was east side compared to north side, and why growing up it was considered a rivalry.
Well, it was considered a rivalry. It really wasn't, but very few on the east side had relatives on the north side. Then the north siders only had 2 elementaries they could go to. They could only go to North School, or they could only go to West School.
Okay.
That was it. There was no, you wasn't coming across that bridge, you couldn't go to East School, where most of the East Siders went, or Hillcrest, which is where most of the East Siders went.
Now you can choice, no choice.
Now you can choice in, and that's unique. And it was what made it so, I guess you could say, unique about it. Nobody ever knew the talent of the neighborhoods until you got to junior high. Elementary, the elementary leagues weren't like they are today. That was the YMCA league.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I tell people this story because there's athletes on both sides of the track. And to know the athlete, you had to know the people. And if you didn't know the people, you didn't know the athlete.
So, not being, say, facetious or anything like
Right.
that, but who were the athletes back then? Were there greats like, we name, the modern 2000 athletes,
Right.
or, the 2020s athletes, but who were those athletes that you looked up to?
I can tell you this, in the athlete part of it, let me tell you what, all you had to do was go to households. There were big families, and then most of the people in those big families, there was the Andrews family, the Pronte family, you can actually throw the Clark family in there, Richardson Clark, but when it came to, you talk about the Clay family, but I'm gonna tell you this, when you got to talking about the athletes, we all knew, east side or north side, who the athletes were. It's where they're gonna continue to be that way. You gotta understand, as we growed up, we had to deal with so much Jim Crow stuff that we really didn't want to. Most of us, I'm gonna tell you this, you picked the right person because I'm kind of the unique one, my age group, because we were in elementary school, couldn't wait. As coming out of Head Start, we couldn't wait to go to the all-black school because we were listening to all the stories that all our mentors were telling us.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, we got to go to I'll just say it, we had to go to the white schools.
Okay. How was that different for you? I mean, was it scary? Was it?
No, we were prepared in life.
Okay.
In my age group, that we were going where my sisters went, which I had two sisters that were older, and all we heard was great things.
Okay.
We couldn't wait to get out there with our group.
Right. Okay.
And be what we are.
Right.
And straight out of kindergarten, I had to go to the segregation camp.
Wow.
And
wow.
Man,
that's where it changed.
It changed, and man, you talking rough. It was unique because they didn't want us there, and we didn't want to be there.
Yeah, and you can feel that.
Oh yes, oh yeah. You had maybe, if you looked at like in the first grade, there was maybe 4 teachers, but at some of these schools, man, understand these are older teachers, growed up.
Sure, in the gym.
Not ready to face it either.
Okay.
And it was who wanted to face it, but they weren't going to leave their job.
Wow.
So it forced you to change your way, where most of the
they didn't have to change.
That's right. They didn't have to do nothing.
Wow.
And then you had the few and the far between that didn't accept it anyway. Mm-hmm. So you had to fight your way through those age groups. But don't worry, we was ready.
Yeah.
But it was very tough. But put like this: we growed up as groups. When we walked to school, we walked in groups. You wasn't gonna catch us offhand.
But I want to just chime in there, and I want you to go back to that point.
Okay.
And you see generations, kids, especially like my African American young boys,
True.
walk in groups, and sometimes that seems like a gang related or whatever. But when you started, it was just protect yourself.
It was just to protect ourselves, but them are our friends. I mean, understand today you can ride a bus and be a block from the high school, a block from elementary.
Yeah.
But you had to live at least 5 miles. I won't never forget it. You had to live at least 5 miles from a school to ride a bus. So, I walked you want to talk about the championship years? Well, we walked to practice.
Oh.
We walked home from practice.
Wow. So let's talk about those championship years, because that looks like when you were growing up, that actually shaped the character and just the willingness of that tenacity to succeed. Going into a whole different environment. So you had a mentality that you're going to win, you're going to make it no matter what. And in 1979, you guys won the first championship that I've known here in Jonesboro, and you're a part of that team.
Yes, and I can tell you this. Don't get anything, take anything for granted. We are the only, I'm gonna just tell you this.
Okay.
You see the championship, 2 of them, but we are the only one recognized in the state as Jonesboro champions. The 72 class, 73 class, tied.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And what people didn't realize is,
I didn't know that. Wow.
You know, back then, I mean, understand, back in the 70s, you got to understand, cable TV came in 79, 80. You wasn't going to find no African American with cable TV, but you had Channel 8. But I can tell you this, we were one of the most unique teams to come through. Don't get it twisted. 78 had a good team. I'm going to just say it like that. And they'll tell you how frustrated they are. But you know what they didn't do is that our group, because we were so angry, you have to understand, I'm a unique group because we were the first year of middle school, which will, as long as I'm on the school board at Jonesboro, I'll never go back to. But we were 8th graders, ready for the 9th grade. You got to understand, in the junior high levels, there was a graduation, there was a prom. We didn't get to do none of that. We got to come to the brand new high school. That was the only accolade we got.
So you missed all that.
So tell me this, how did you feel? You went to college, right?
Yes, sir.
How did you feel when you got there and seen the seniors and you were a freshman?
Wow, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to try to make a name for myself. I wanted to show them that, hey, I can compete with you all.
Right.
That I belong here.
Right. Pretty tough though, wasn't it?
It was tough.
Well, I can tell you this, it was like beginning teenager growing and you're in class with grown people. 9th graders were in class with 12th graders.
Okay.
But I'm gonna tell you, it wasn't that bad because we knew one another. Where it became a problem was in sports. We weren't prepared for what they decided on, the board decided on. And when they decided that, they didn't have nowhere for the 9th graders to do nothing. We had to practice at 5 in the morning.
And then you were part of that group.
I was part of that group. Wow. And then they separated us.
Wow.
We were ready for the Annie Camp MacArthur rivalry.
Right.
We were black and gold.
Okay.
Now understand, in junior high, I started every game. I was middle linebacker, matter of fact. As big as I am today, I was this big in junior high. And had hair on my face too. So, just so you know. But I was tough, but everybody knew who I was because I was one of the unique African Americans that, this is a story you can write down. I told this story to quite a few people that didn't know, is that my grandma lived right down the street from East School.
Okay.
Well, I never knew anything about the YMCA League. But that's what we played at on the playground from my grandma's house. So I go up there one day and they're playing football and they've got a coach and everything. And I'm like, man, so some of the kids that I was in class with in the 5th and 6th grade were out there. And I finally got a hold of one of them and I said, hey, what are y'all doing? They said, we're playing YMCA football. There was no youth league, it was YMCA league.
Okay.
And I said, well, how much is it? You know, and they said, well, it's gonna cost you about $10. That's just to join.
Wow.
And then, so I went home that night and as tough as you have to understand, back in those days, you dared ask your parents for money. Wow. You dared do that. But you know, when you barely had shoes on your feet and clothes on your back, you couldn't ask for $10 to just play a sport. So I went in and my dad knew I was a pretty good athlete, but you know, my dad was a baseball player, son.
Okay.
So I went in and we were watching football that Sunday, week of, and I asked him for $10. He said, what for? I said, to play football. And he said, you don't need to do that. But the next morning before he went to work, he gave me that $10. And so I went and played it. And the only uniform I had, you gotta understand, the only thing I ever played was satellite out on the school ground. And that was with my friends in the neighborhood, but I went to play organized football. I'm faster than all those guys. This is what went through my mind. I'm faster, I'm stronger, I done seen what they could do. So the only thing I had football was a couple years before that, my mom bought me one of those Sears and Roebuck football helmets, shoulder pads, shirt, pants, and I wore my tennis shoes for cleats. So when I signed up, the coach was arrogant about it. You know, he said, "Oh, get out there on the kickoff." And I got out there on the kickoff, and I took off running, but I was sliding everywhere. You know, so
because you had your tennis shoes as cleats.
Because I had my tennis shoes as cleats. Yeah. So he said, "Do it again." When he told me to do it again, I took my shoes off. And if you don't know anything, everybody's fast when they're barefooted. And they never seen me again. So the next play, he said, "Get back there and running back." You know. So I got back there and running back, and you guys probably don't remember this, but you can remember a little bit of this because you were back in the day of the Osceola, when Osceola was the prime time football team. Okay. If you ever went to their stadium, you know, they let you know that we're here. Well, the coach for Osceola lived in Jonesboro on Nelson. His name was, I think his name was Frank Gore. Gore.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And he had a son named Stacy Gore.
Okay.
He lived beside the McDaniel family right there on Nelson, one of the bigger houses. Well, after I got it running back, I took off and did a run, and a kid hit me. And that Sears and Roebuck helmet split right down the middle, fell off. I had to go to the sideline. I couldn't do nothing else that day.
Yeah.
So Stacy Gore came over, and he said, "When you go out there to run the next time, you put my helmet on." And he was always wearing Rydell.
Wow.
Yeah, with the little balloons in. He was already wearing that in the early 70s. Wow. But his dad was a coach, high school football coach.
So the advancement.
So next practice, his dad sent me a helmet. Next practice, his dad sent me shoulder pads. Next practice, I got a pair of pants. Next practice, I got cleats.
Yeah.
And the rest was history.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how my organized football started. And then you have to understand, being the ASU was real close to the east side. We didn't have to do nothing but go through a trestle, and we was at the football field, the old field house, what they called it.
Yeah.
Jumping joke.
Yeah,
we stayed there.
I think I remember going by there as a kid,
really?
But never been in.
Man, when we stayed there on the weekends, of course, you know why. But we stayed out that way most of the time, and we went out there one Saturday, and there was a pump, pass, and kick competition.
Okay.
And we got out there, you didn't have to pay nothing, just compete. And I played second.
Wow.
In the pump, pass, and kick, qualified to go to national. And I never did anything after that.
How old were you then?
I was probably 11.
Yeah. Is that kind of new when you had a gift?
I thought I had a gift all along. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't mean to cut you, but just hearing everything that you just said that normally don't happen for individuals. Say individuals, but in your time doing things that normal African American young boys don't get a chance to do. Because when I was growing up at the YMCA, that was still, and I grew up late 80s, early 90s, but we never could go to the YMCA.
That's correct.
So you being a part of the YMCA, that's monumental. And I'm not just trying to blow smoke, because that was something out of sight, out of mind. And so I got a scar right here. Because they used to jump the fence. They put barbed wire.
That's true.
So we had to jump the fence to get in it. And so, I can see why. A young man, Mr. Devin Reynolds, he pulled me over at Jonesboro High School football game. He said, "Man, Rennell, you need to talk to Joe." And I'm saying, "Joe?" I said, "Man, Joe, quiet. Why you want to talk to Joe?" But man, you are loaded, man. You are loaded. And you talk about your parents. Your parents, especially your mother, is a pillar in this community. Man, how do you feel and stand on, being able to stand on shoulders like that? Because, for you to do that even put me, because I respect the Sheppards is, like I shared with you, I knew no one but Byron.
Right.
But the Sheppard name was always a ringer bell in our community. But I know your mother has been a trailblazer for many, many years, and I can see why now you were able to do what you do. Man, how does that bring such a, I guess, a pride and such a strength for you to continue to push on? And not only for you and your family, but for other children. Now you've been part of the Jonesboro High School Board of Directors.
Well, let me tell you, growing up, you had to understand my mom was strictly in education. You know, she went to Pine Bluff, which was Arkansas A&M back then. You know, but my mom got her degree. And you know, my dad, people really didn't know my dad because he didn't have the education, but my dad was really a big pillar in the community, you know. You have to understand, growing up in those years, most men were Masonics, most women were Eastern Star, and most women were educated. But the men were all the breadwinners.
Okay.
So growing up, regardless, me being a mama's boy, my mom became a teacher when my oldest sister went to East School. And so we were at school with a parent. I can tell you that was the toughest than anything. But to idolize my mom was just the educational part. You have to understand, they started Miss Robbie Lyles, and Miss Harriet Hyatt started a group, and they were, I think they were called something else before Respect. But what they did for us was like a watchdog. You know, when we were in school, if you was in the 80s, then you were part of the BIC, I'm sure.
I've heard of it.
Okay, then that was before your time then. Okay, well, the BIC club was invented to protect us. There was student council, there was beta club.
When you say protect,
you know, so in order to be in a club, you basically had to be 3.5, 3.0 GPA. Okay. Because you had to be voted in. We started our own club. And that was the Black Involvement Club.
Okay.
So we could have a club. And most African Americans that were in school in the early 70s to the early 80s were part of that. And actually Miss Sonia Williams was the one that helped us along. She was one of the, Miss Sonia Williams, Miss Smith, C.C. Smith's mom, and then Miss Gaines. That was it.
Wow.
That was all we seen of people like us. There wasn't no professors. There wasn't none of that. But these were the people we seen, and you only seen them at a certain grade level.
Okay.
You know, but they helped us along. That was our guidance because nobody else was guiding us.
Wow.
But in between that time, my mom was we call it what they call it, as you call it, legendary legacy of whatever. But my mom was just a part of it. Miss Stevie Pronny was a part of it. And I can give you this. You talked about our 79 class. I can tell you this. When it came to the football games at the school, you got judged by the community. You know, when you left the football field.
So you got to perform.
Well, our mentors was the community. You know, we all talked to one another, knew what we had to do. But come Saturday after Friday night,
yes sir,
we were right back at the E. Boone Watson Center. And the older cats,
you about to get it. Yes sir.
Yeah, and until you, how do I put it? Till you became something, then you didn't get picked to play. You had to go make your own team to play, and you wasn't gonna play in the center when the grown men were in there. But when you start getting picked by the grown men, then you knew you'd done something.
Yeah. Wow.
And so our senior year in school, which you have to understand, I never played football from the 9th grade because I had a problem with a coach, and the coach had a problem with me.
Sure.
But it wasn't like today. This is how it went. I preferred to work. My dad demanded I had to work, and I worked plumb through my elementary levels. 8-year-old, I was working. You know, my dad had a little side business, but I had to work. And I didn't have a problem with it. My dad did it. So I wasn't bad. But between that and sports never became an issue because sports was only this time to this time. And then it was only one certain time of the year. So when we got to the high school, I can tell you this. You know, I talked about before about the rivalry with the Northsiders, but we were glad when we met at the high school.
Okay.
We were all one.
Yeah.
And it was especially one if your parent and my parents were best friends. So there was never a problem there because we just kind of became a dominant force, which we had to be. Walking in that high school with people not wanting you there. And in the sports, we were superior, but you had to be allowed to play.
That's
hard to understand.
That's
today.
hard to comprehend. If you had the best talent and you could run fast and you can do all this stuff and make plays, and everybody else knew that, why would you be allowed to play? It wasn't. I mean, this is past.
Because it's just like anything else. When you come up through the junior high ranks and then you get to the high school, I understand. I just told you what year we came there.
Right.
Well, let's say we were ninth graders, but when the 10th graders got there,
okay,
that wasn't, but the football team didn't consist. Go back and look at the pictures. It wasn't 20 blacks on the team. It was like, when you looked at the picture, you know which ones were there.
Wow.
And they were the ones who played. But the opportunities weren't there.
Yeah.
You had to make your opportunity, but you had to get the chance. You had to get in practice. I don't know how your practicing went. You had to get in blood pit, and you had to be, but people just knew. And it was sort of like I said, I didn't play 10th or 11th grade, but I got asked. So I went out in the 10th grade. What I did, I always missed my physical because summers, my dad, we had it going on, making money. So, it wasn't about taking no physical.
Right, you got to.
And he wasn't paying for one either.
Right, right.
So I went out to the coaches after they had took their, Jonesboro always had their physicals, like at St. Bernard, you had to do it that certain time or you had to pay for it.
Okay.
Well, back to the money thing. So I went to the coaches in the 10th grade and said, hey, I want to go ahead and take my physical and come out here and play. And the coach turned around in his chair and he looked at me and he said, so you want to play, huh? And that's how he said it.
Right.
And I looked at him. I said, you know what? No, I don't think I do. Because it would have been hard for me to go sell that to my dad because I know what he would have done.
Right.
So I didn't play. And I didn't even attempt to play in the 11th grade, but I saw them. And I saw where they struggled. And I watched them. I watched them in the 11th grade. I watched them even in the 10th grade. I had some the Andrews guys was out there in the 10th grade. And even in the 9th grade, Gary Clay was out there. Understand, we were there because most of those games were played, where we wanted to see if they was everything we thought they would be. And they were. Most of them played. But the thing that hurt them is they were by themselves.
Wow.
They were by themselves. And they knew of other athletes that should have been out there with them.
Right.
But you couldn't force an athlete who had issues.
Sure.
And it was serious issues. I watched that in the basketball years, which people didn't know it, but I was just as good in basketball as I was football. And I tell people this story, I said, you wouldn't believe this. I never played from the 9th grade on. I never played a down of high school basketball, but I got 5 scholarship offers when I graduated.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know this, but that's how counseling works. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know when people are watching or when people are putting your name out there.
Sure.
And I can tell you that there were so many athletes that never got that opportunity that was great.
Wow.
Yeah, and I grew up watching them. So when we got to the senior year, and this is what happened, the summer, the guys that knew that I could play, we got together in the summer and they was like, yeah,
okay,
you need to come on out. Don't worry about this.
Right.
Don't worry about this coach. Don't worry about that. Okay. And everything fell into place. The thing that didn't fall into place is when we got out in 2 days and the coaches don't know.
Okay.
Okay, well, we took a notion. Well, you have to understand, when you become a senior, you got to say so in a lot of things.
Okay.
A lot of say so.
I think it's still like that today, too.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Some of these guys today are kind of individualized.
Yeah.
They kind of take that, I'm just worried about me.
Yeah.
Well, we were worried about each other.
Yeah.
Because we still had to walk home together, talk with them. So what we did as a senior class, when they recruited me, we recruited the rest. But what I learned when I got out there is that it's not always what it seems. They do things because this guy played, he was pretty good last year. I'm gonna say it like that.
Yeah.
This guy was pretty good last year. This guy was pretty good last year. But if you were African American, you were still a step behind, regardless of your ability. So what we did as a senior class, because Coach Riggs back then didn't believe in it, but the senior class recommended, yeah. So we got in the blood pit. Every practice, every Monday was blood pit. And early on, as we challenged them. We were great. We had a great offense, but no defense. And I was a defensive player. And I really didn't want to run on offense. I wanted to hit somebody. Because there's two things we can do. We can run fast and we can hit somebody.
We can hit somebody, yeah.
And so what we did, we challenged we had a few 11th graders that were great and big. And they were our neighbors.
Okay.
And they were out there.
Okay.
But normally at Jonesboro High, senior class got priority. You had to be probably not African American to play as a 10th or 11th grader.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
Or you had to be extraordinary. So we got in blood pit. And me and a couple of seniors got together and we got in blood pit and we told the coaches that, hey, we think we got guys that can beat you. I had 4 guys on offense that had already signed D1. Ed Trout, Chris Fowler, Bubba Carter, and this was center, guard, tackle. And when you get in blood pit, there's either going to be one of those 3 blocking a defensive guy.
Right.
So we put those juniors in their blood pit with the 2 dummies beside in that little hole, and we put one of our seniors' brothers, which was Errol Prunty, as running back there. And so Errol got back there. I can tell this story because it was one of the greatest stories that probably made our championship years greater. This was 4 games in, and we're letting the opponent average 31 points a game, and we're winning. We're winning. That wasn't a problem. We had to, eventually we were going to have to stop somebody.
Right.
But it wasn't a priority. We were 3-0, you know, number 4 in the state. Yeah, we beat the number 1 team in the state, first game of the season, North Little Rock. They were called the North Little Rock Chargers then. They had 4 D1 signees already.
Wow.
And so we beat them here. And then we went on the road and we played the number 5 team in the state of Missouri in the toughest class at Poplar Bluff. And we beat them. It wasn't none of those wins. We didn't play down. Coach Rick set us up to play the toughest team in the toughest divisions around us and to see how tough we were. Well, after we went to Poplar Bluff, we decided we needed to do something amongst ourselves to make our defense tougher.
Okay.
You can't teach a kid to hit harder,
No.
run faster. So what we did, we got those 11th graders, and I can tell you, they were godsend. It was Chris Woods. You know him?
I know Chris.
Okay. It was
And he played with y'all?
Kentel.
No.
Okay.
Who's Kentel?
Kentel was bigger than Chris.
Okay.
Mark Evans
Okay.
and Anthony Legs. Those 4 with the other ones we already have. And I can tell you this, that's your 4 down linemen for defense. And the way they got to play, and it still wasn't triple. We played blood pit in practice, and Coach put Ed Trout out there.
Against who?
Against Mark Evans. Ed outweighed him probably 55 pounds, but Mark was a nose man.
Yeah.
And we knew how tough he was, but we were going to make him tougher. We were seniors, they were juniors, and we didn't play. You know, if you didn't whoop him, we was whooping you. That was it. That's the way you learn.
Yes, sir.
But you probably didn't think, oh, you ain't gonna. Yeah. But let me just tell you this. Okay. So Ed Charleston signed with Arkansas State. He's got film where he's like, you remember how the blind side when Orr drove a guy 15 yards? Ed Trout was that.
Wow.
I'm talking any Northman in state, he was driving them 15 yards. He was making film of a lifetime. We watching him.
Wow. Yeah.
And we put Mark Evans out there against him. And the first play in that, they're lined up probably a yard apart. Ed hits him, and they just stand there. They don't move.
Wow.
Ed hits him like, man, hit him, it sounded like a shotgun going off.
Wow.
And so we, as seniors, we pulled Mark to the side. And we said, you gonna let this happen? It's no way you gonna let this happen. We grabbed his face mask and told him, you get down there. And like I said, Arrow walked through there and he laughed. He was a running back. And this is, I swear to you, we never thought it was that dominant, but the next play, Ed did that same move. Mark slung him to the ground and just killed Arrow Prunty.
Wow.
Where Arrow wouldn't even run no more.
Oh, wow.
After that, we put Kentel,
Y'all put fear in
Chris,
Y'all put fear in them
and
boys.
Lakes all in that blood pit.
Wow.
And from that day forward, it still took about a half, but finally when they made the move, it was the move of a lifetime. The next week, we was featured in the Jonesboro Sun. The first time in Jonesboro history. 9 blacks started on a Jonesboro team.
Wow. I'm going to take a pause from there, and that just blew me away. It's history that I know. This is good stuff, man.
Oh, man.
We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come and close on our closing questions and kind of wrap up.
Okay.
And just kind of how you've seen from your time and how you're in now being able to make policy change, but also to empower, the whole district to be able to transition because of doing moments that, that probably already have taken place, but, your wisdom and your insight helps the district be better. So go back and say, we left off talking about, Jonesboro and how the senior rallied together, you guys rallied together, and the mentality was if, whatever the senior said, everybody followed.
That's
and
true.
you were able to also go get guys that was not playing and come into play when y'all won that state championship.
True, because the rule was, if you was an underclassman, you knew your chances of playing were slim to none. If a senior, we found that out. If a senior, how were the coaches gonna know? They should have.
Right.
But these coaches were senior high coaches, and they were successful. I mean, understand the year before, lost in the championship to Jacksonville. And losing that game, they shouldn't have lost. But to know how they lost, we watched it. And how they lost was speed. If you don't stop speed, what people didn't recognize this is because we had a nationally ranked running back that wasn't nationally ranked, and that was Brian Prunty.
Wait a minute.
And that was Brian Prunty. People didn't realize
The Prunty's here.
Yeah, Brian Prunty should have been talked about more than anybody in the state, but they talked about this kid out of Hot Spring. Wallace Snowden was his name.
Yeah. But why Brian Prunty?
Because he was about to eclipse the 2,000-yard mark.
In high school? Jonesboro?
Yeah, and he did. But we played the number 1 guy. And this is how people really started nosing. We played the number 1 guy with that defense I told you about.
Yeah.
And them 4 down linemen.
Yeah.
And he got like 60 yards a game. Where he was averaging about 210, 250.
And y'all shut him down.
Oh yeah, we shut them down. Yeah, it was no brainer. He was gonna get shut down. They were gonna learn to pass that game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Jonesboro, nationally ranked Brian, but also Jonesboro, y'all finished close to being on the national rank?
Oh yes, we was up there. Yeah, because
Nobody's talking. I've been in Jonesboro all my life. Nobody, and I'm not talking about Jonesboro, but
right.
To be in a community and don't know history like that, what do you get a chance not to look for? I mean,
it's because it's amazing that I guess you went out there doing the celebration. What was it, 2 years ago, Eddie? They celebrated our the championship football teams.
Okay.
And the 73 class was there. That's Jim DeBaker's class.
Okay.
They were all there. And they were all bragging about their championship. They the ones got the sign made. And they added us to it.
Okay.
But all we tell you to do is just Google it.
Wow.
And see where you'll see Jonesboro name. Just Google it. And see if you see that 73 class.
Y'all are that good, man.
We were good. We actually, we're overtime and a half yard away from being undefeated.
Wow.
And that good. But,
Wow.
You know.
Wow. Well, man, let's talk about Jonesboro High School today.
Oh, yeah.
2023.
Yes.
In terms of education, how, it evolved over time, man. We probably, when you came in, maybe, 10% diversity, African American, minority. Now today, we're looking at maybe around 60% minority. It's been a vast change over the years. And man, I just say this humbly because hearing your story and man, what you accomplished and what you guys have been through and how you were able to change mentalities of a district where coaches may not even see or would never seen the talent that you had. But now you can able to see teachers and children and to be able to help other teachers and administrators to be able to see the gold mines that we have in our children in our district. Man, how is that? I know it's fulfilling for you to be able to sit on a Jonesboro board, but to be able to make change is probably still kind of tough. What are some of your goals and what are you doing now to do that?
Okay, my goal when I got on the board was not to stay. Not to stay. But Dr. Coleman is the one who asked me to join the board, not knowing that I would really be interested in all the other things that I have to do. But you talked about what my mama instilled in me was education. And I sort of reflected back on my kids being in school and what they endured. They didn't endure like the average kid because they had everything. And they were pretty good. But I think what I chose to do once I was in it a year after being appointed, because I had to run somebody else's term.
Okay.
And then when I got elected myself, I chose to get deeper in it.
Okay.
And I remember, a very good listener can be very positive in so many ways. But the thing that I learned from the beginning was I went to some new board training early on, and it always said a good board member will always, his first 2 years, just be a listener.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of like that, and the reason why a lot of people would think I was quiet till I talked. And so, even in the board meetings, everybody kind of worried because I've kind of got I'm a supervisor on my job, so I kind of got a stone face. But I'm going to say what's on my mind. But when I got in board meetings, I hardly ever said anything, hardly ever voted, hardly everything. So as I got more involved, I started seeing that there was a lot of things that still hadn't changed.
Okay.
That people were having really issues with and didn't know how to move forward with the education part. My goals for Jonesboro is this. This has got to happen. You were right on the diversity thing, but you were kind of wrong in my era. Okay. We were kind of like 3 to 5%.
Wow.
Because back then, you didn't have to go to school and your parents get called. You could quit any time. But as far as the new era, these kids have to go to school.
Right.
Now, how often can a kid respect any man that don't respect him and look like him?
It's a harder of a concept to grasp, to learn, to be able to see or relate.
And the problem you have today is that with the teachers you have today, they're book smart. They teach like the book says. But what about the kid sitting over in that corner back there that really look like he's having issues at home? Do you evaluate that? You know, the teachers when I growed up, and I'm talking about the white teachers.
Sure.
You know, because we didn't have a 3. You know, I couldn't have them all 3 classes. But, you know, those teachers had to grasp what you were going through.
Right.
And that's a problem we have today with the teachers we have. Teachers are lovely, lovely, lovely. I endure all teachers, but they need to be trained. And the training part, you don't get enough time.
Yeah.
When a teacher applies for a job, they can come in there and sit in the back room and watch and say, I don't want to do this. Or they could even say that I can do things better, but it's the teacher that comes over there to put like this. I always said this. I learned this through training also. If you teach the ones that need the teaching, the smart ones gonna always catch it, but that's not the motto.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay? If you teach the one that really needs taught.
Right. You cater to the upper echelon.
Right.
Yeah.
If you cater to the smart ones,
Right.
then don't think the ones that ain't. They're gonna say, just go ahead on. And you have to start from the ones that's the hardest.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why our grade fail when it comes to national level, state level, is because the teachers that grasp that, you'll see. You can even break that down by school. But I try not to punish teachers because they're hard, they're few and far hard to come by.
But training.
But I'm gonna tell you this, the training, and you have to understand, we're metropolitan, that's what I say.
Yeah.
And if you read my article from the ASBA, you'll see it's true.
It was a great article. Yeah.
When it comes from Fort City, North, I'm talking Newport, I'm talking even Bayfield even. We're metropolitan. We're the Little Rock to those schools.
Yeah.
If you don't know that, those people ain't moving to Little Rock, you know. And you see Little Rock is study building schools.
Right.
To try to deviate that, but we're the metropolitan. And we are about, I would say we're 60%. Because when you get out on a football field and you hear numbers like 80 African Americans, 15 whites, and 4 Mexicans, what would that make you think? I can tell you this, that would have never happened in the past. But that tells me something.
Yes, sir.
Either smarter people are picking things that they can do better. Now remember this. A whole lot of people is picking things that they can do better than you to go to and concentrate on, other than going out there and competing in some of the other sports. I think you can really reflect that on the basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of kids, you know, I mean, they're not there anymore. But how do we, and in the position that you're in, and how can, as a community leader, a community advocate, how do we help bring that mentality to our district?
Well, let me tell you what I would start at. You have to help bring some teachers in.
Yeah.
And they got to be like you. And then I ain't talking about just any of them. I'm talking about, man, we've got schools around here that's just the opposite, like the Blaubles,
Sure.
the Osceolas. You know, these teachers, you have to recruit these teachers, because understand, Jonesboro, we're the highest paying school in the district. And we've always have been since I've been on the board. We made it a point to be that. Tell people this, just like I told the ASBA guy, that's all the way from kindergarten. And
what do you see in IT?
Well, it's like this. But how far does it go when you leave school? There's no citywide internet.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these kids ain't even got a cell phone.
Yeah.
But you put them on a computer, and you'd be astonished. And you know, our plan in Jonesboro is that every computer follows a kid. You do know that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Until he graduates, and then they can even get it if they want it. So, you know, my goal is to strictly unify the teachers to where we can change the ratio a little bit better than it has been. Yeah. But we also want the loving teachers. They ain't got to be of color.
Let's care.
And that's where you have a gap. When you got teachers that's in their 30s and 20s now, you weren't raised like that.
Yeah.
You were capitalizing on what you had because you had it. But the ones that aren't are left behind. And that's where the gap comes into play. But we have to get smarter. We're going to get smarter in this state. And people think the reason why we're not because, our ratio.
Right.
But diversity is a key thing in that. And if you're scared of it, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because it's spreading out. Everybody wants a little bit of it.
Right.
They just don't want it all.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just put the facts out there.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, the Valley View.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah. Oh,
you see it on the news too.
Yeah.
I mean, West Side.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you this. I got a couple of board members from surrounding areas. I won't give their name. But 2 years ago, they took a family from Jonesboro football that was sitting our bench and made it all the way to the high school finals. Those 4 kids were one family.
Yeah.
Right now, the star running back that they had is one of the top running backs. He plays for UCA right now. His brothers all just athletes.
Yeah.
But they were sitting Jonesboro bench.
Wow.
They never got to see a day in the clock.
So let's jump into this. How was your inspiration and your leadership hiring the first African-American head coach at Jonesboro? Because going back to relatability and being able to see kids looking like themselves and being able to relate, how inspiring was, and it may not have been inspiring for you, but how detrimental was your leadership in bringing that, or did you have a say-so?
I had a great big say-so in that because I was kind of idolized by everybody on the board because of it. But I had a great big say-so in that. I can't say that it worked out like I thought. Actually, when we chose to put the football coach job up, it was hard replacing somebody from Jonesboro. That's the way they looked at it. It's hard. But then when I had to instill in the superintendent, don't worry about it. They gonna put in for it. Don't think it's not coaches out there. I can tell you this. And I can't tell you all of it, but I can tell you this, in the interview process, that was people wanting this job that were college coaches.
Wow.
And the sad part about it, we chose the best in the state, we thought.
Yeah.
That didn't work out.
Right.
But we can see now, that wasn't a bad choice, was it?
No.
Okay.
No.
But the thing about it, there were possibilities. The sad part about it is that it put us in a bad situation because we didn't have enough time to repost it because I think we would have got more. Yeah, when you have a team, I don't know when you played or any of these other guys played, but how many seniors, African American, did you have?
At least 20.
That's pretty unique.
Yeah. We were at that stage.
Okay. Well, this is where they were this year. Did you win?
We picked to win state.
Okay.
We got beat by Jacksonville.
Okay, so check it out. Then check this out. It was 36. And 30 of them were African American. It was 36 seniors.
Wow. Not counting juniors and sophomores.
Well, we're talking about seniors.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
And my perspective of that was that it should have been better. Not a lot of teams can say that, when you talk about veteran leadership, and I don't care who they are, but when you get 36 seniors and 30 of them African American, and you can't perform, then, I'm not going to say we had a great year this year. It was better than last year, which was the key. Yeah. Where we're going, I don't know yet, but we were put in a bad situation when our coach left because you got to understand we're short probably 2 coaches in the football. I'm saying,
right.
But we're going to get better as long as I'm on the board.
I believe that. I believe that. Our last question of the day. We thank you. I've been enjoying this. Man, it's been great. Man, you are the real deal. Devin Reynolds, I tell you, I need to take him out for a steak or something because he hit it on the money, man. And I never knew. I never knew this guy and man, it's so incredible. But last but not least, we're not going to let you leave because you've seen some greats. You're in that period where Jonesboro actually, our kids start to second grade to come in and be able to get on that platform, the major platform. Right. So you've seen from that stage of life until where you are now. Right. You got to leave us with your number one football player selection and your number one basketball player selection of the top players that you've seen, the top player in football and basketball, and it may be you, but you got to leave us with that over the years. And you've seen kids that played, and of course you had to go get kids, and that touched my heart, man, because that's leadership, man. Right. I'll leave you. You can have the floor.
I can tell you this, probably, if I was going to go in football, my greatest football player,
Jonesboro history.
Jonesboro history. You have to go with the success that a kid had, and it's a toss-up between probably Ira McBride or Lester Manning.
And this football, basketball?
This is football.
Okay.
Basketball, I've seen some greats, and I'm going to just tell you this. It's so many. Milton Sullivan, Robert Curry. Let me tell you something. I can go through some names that you'll never know about. Larry Joe Andrews. Man, let me tell you something. Donnie Andrews. I can tell you the story about Donnie that you'll never understand, but he never played one high school day of basketball, but became a junior college phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah, but the Andrews family was just made like that. But James Andrews, Gary Clay, Harvey Johnson. I can tell you some greats, even though you guys remember the Ali, the Corey Ross. Those guys were great, right? But not during my era. Right. I want you to understand that. I'm talking about before and during my era. And I'm telling you guys that should have been just way up there. Nate Van Pelt, understand these are great, great athletes. Wow. Joe T. Marshall, probably the world famous though.
Benji Marshall's father?
Benji Marshall's father. And if you guys don't ever want to talk about, this is something probably way before you guys' time, but Joe T. Marshall was probably one of the greatest African-American athletes to come through the black schools. Wow. And buddy, you can believe it if you ever talk to him.
Listen, I can believe it. I'm in 7th grade. I'm in the stands. His son, Benji Marshall, is a 9th grader. I'm sitting there watching about 6 foot, 215-pound running back hurdle. This was for Zeke Elliott. Right. He hurdled a kid on the right sideline and just took it down to the house. And I was like, this kid is a phenomenon. Wow. But you say his dad, I believe it. But I never knew it.
Greatest. Wow. And and when you, like I said, when you talk about basketball, B.J. Clark, that was some, and these guys were all great junior high. And how they didn't prosper in high school, what I found out when I got there. Yeah. It was a transition. It was a racial divide. Yeah. You had to be super. You had to be like Will Chamberlain. Wow. And that's what Milton Sullivan was. But people never knew about him. But it was I think some people will remember that the Twin Towers. I can tell you I've enjoyed watching the sports at Jonesboro. The only thing that really hurt my feelings was the football program. Yeah. Because those same great athletes on. Yeah. I think we can all admit. I think Coach Daniels put it in perspective. Ali would have been playing on Sundays if he had stayed in football and punted. But I mean, let's just put it out there. I can tell you, it's some great athletes that you guys walk beside every day, and would never think they was that great. But if we laugh about it because, like I said, I'm like the bottom of that era, but I'm part of that era.
Yes, sir.
You know, all because I was born in the early
foundation.
60s.
Yeah, that was the foundation.
And it was there.
Yeah.
You know, and they proved it to you every day.
Wow. Well, Joe, Mr. Joe Sheppard, man, thank you so much.
No problem.
Man, this has been a tremendous lesson, man.
Anytime.
Hey, wow, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to, man, just see where you're taking our Jonesboro District with your passion, your leadership, man. And, man, a quiet storm.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
God
you.
bless. Yes, sir.
All right.